it swells and it locks the strike, which is on the lid. It locks the strike within the switch. When you take current off, it then releases and it cools and it changes back to regular position. The one I'm going to send around is 240 volt. This is for an export model. The one that comes with the machine is 120. Okay?
How long is the delay to open?
Well, that will vary based upon co-stand. So what happens is, once it comes to a stop, it's about 8 seconds. It has to be free from spinning. Now that will vary depending on what you put in it.
This wax motor is gonna let you open in 8 seconds?
Yes, once it releases. So we get away from the latching relays, which is what others have. Once you disconnect power, you can't get the lid up. This, once you disconnect power, it opens. And we, like I said, same technology in laundromats. Because if you lock somebody's clothes in a laundromat, we're going to have a big problem. They're going to break the glass to get their stuff out, especially during power failures.
Also, depending on what cycle you select from the beginning, it does not lock. Yeah, they can still open it. And then depending on what cycle it's in and you decide to pause it, it's 2 to 8 seconds before it opens.
So we allow you to open the lid during fill, but the lid must lock during agitation and spin. So I'll go ahead and pass both of these around. If you yank up on this lid, it'll actually pop free. But you've got to apply a lot of pressure, about 15 pounds. These parts don't break. This has some give to it. We've done the experiment. Now, there is a trick to that. If the customer happens to grab on this side and yank up, then you're going to snap the strike. Most people grab the handle, so we're hoping that we don't hear any of these break. Okay, I'll pass them both around. Have a look. On this machine, the lid lock is located here, and it's got a harness disconnect. So for service people, right now, this is hard to make access with the lid lock and be able to see what's going on at the same time. So what the service department is going to do is come up with something, either an extension or some type of unit you pop in that door lock, and it will then close with the lid open. It hasn't been decided yet. It's still in the works right now. The other thing is, they were thinking about providing a longer harness, and that would give you a little bit of vision into the tub, and you can see what's going on. Any questions so far? Okay. We have the bleach cup on the top, and we made a bigger collector on the tub cup. Okay. This is almost the same as the 4-foot tube, but it's a little different because of the larger cup and the air brake that DOE wanted from Suds line. It has pressure tabs and it has a gasket. But most important, when you put it back on, it has a keyway. It's over here. So it's keyed, and I'll pass this around, so that when you put it back on, you find the slot right on the tub. Very easily, and you snap it in place. You don't have to search and figure out the exact spot. Okay? I'll pass that around. Any questions about the tub cover? No? Okay, the second component that helps with our balancing is our balance ring. Now this has sodium chloride in it, which is corrosive, and it will leave marks on clothing, and it will rust steel. It's a varying temperature, so it can handle -10 all the way up to 135 or 145. Whatever the temperature is in transit at its hottest time. That's what I was told. This is made by the factory, just as all of the plastics. They're all made by the factory. We have injection mold systems, we have To make this machine, we actually use rolls of steel, and it starts out as a roll. It's a pretty neat process to see. This unit is sealed by the factory, and there has been instances where this leaks. Okay, so you have some leakers, huh? Okay. The other thing is, if you're trying to diagnose, is this bad? The easiest way is to spin the machine with nothing in it. If you're getting a lot of vibration, then this balance ring is probably not doing its job, probably doesn't have enough fluid, you get it leaked out. It does happen. The symptom is excessive shaking empty. With a load, it even gets worse. So the way that this works is if you have a load that is offside here, this fluid actually congregates to this side, the opposing side of the off-balance blade. It's pretty neat how they do it. They don't tell me exactly, proprietary, but it doesn't have oil and variance. It's just a salt type of solution. Any questions about how this works? Yes?
Why use something so corrosive?
Well, it stands the properties of heat and cold. So it could be ethyl glycol, which is like an antifreeze type. I don't know. I pre-disassembled this with the help of my gentleman here because I want to make it a little quicker. But when we put it together, or any time during this, you can come up and take a look if you want to. And when we put it together, I welcome all the hands that put it together. You know, the guys that stand around, the guys that are watching, because the best way to learn is to actually touch it. That's how I learned in the 80s. Okay, so the other thing we have here is a refined agitator. This is a tall post agitator. The fins are fixed and do not flex. Okay. In the top of it, we have the softener cup. It's easily removed and allows you to clean it, meaning the homeowner. It removes easily. The other thing is, we have, I don't have it here, but we have a toolkit, which is 725P3. In that toolkit, and I'll repeat the number, is a special puller that fits underneath this agitator. It's a handle with a clip. You put them on both sides where the fins are permanent. That's the strongest point of this. When you lift up, it actually spreads this gripping system, which is pressure tab. That mounts to the bell, which I'm going to pull out next. But a few things. I've heard in some schools that they use these handles and they try to put them in here or in here, and they said that's where they were pulling from. This is on our prior model. The system is the same, okay? Meaning that if you pull from here and here, all you're going to do is cause the agitator to pull in and grip more. Reason why you go below is because you help spread it and open it, because it's a pressure tab. Okay? I'll pass this around. Any questions about that?
Or you can use the belt.
Yeah, right. This one was exceptionally snug, so I'll make a report to the factory about that, and they'll change it, I'm sure, in production, or they probably already did. Okay, so the hat is what the agitator slides on. Okay? This is what holds the agitator in place. We no longer do this. We don't have a transmission. Okay? We work it a little differently. This has 4 half-inch bolts that hold it to the bell that's underneath the inner tub. As I pull it apart, you'll see. It has 1/7/16 in the center here. And it has a waterproofing cork that keeps that post dry. Okay? Any questions so far? Nope. Okay, so under that hat is a seal. And that seal actually comes off very easily. But in our kit, we have a specialty item that can put the seal back on. Now, it helps this process because you can damage the seal when you slide it on. This is a perfect circumference and allows the palm of your hand to put pressure on the top of it, which then provides even pressure as it slides on. So I'm going to pop this screw real quick. Now, the easiest way is, once again, if you use the agitator handles that I was explaining for the agitator, they work on the seal as well.
Is that the 725 P3?
Yes, that's all in the kit. Yes. Just a side note here, I got my case damaged by TSA, so I don't have any of this stuff with me. My case is in Denver with all my tools and the specialty tools that I use to do this and explain to you how they work. So just a side note. Anyway, I have that toolkit is actually backward compatible. Okay, so it'll work on machines that we made probably, I think the kit was made in the 60s or 70s. So it'll work on machines all the way back to that time, just after the CA model, which is a solid inner tub. This seal, all it does is help protect the large nut that holds the transmission shaft or the axle. We no longer have a transmission, so we put a big axle in place of it. Okay. That looks like this. This is 10 pounds. The seal sits on top of this area, and what it does is it protects any water from getting in here that would rust the bolt that holds the top of the hat in place. Okay. I'll pass this around in a minute. I just want to continue on with something else first. Here's the seal. I will pass that around. Okay. So the next step is to pull the stainless steel tub out. That's held in place by 4 bolts. We pre-disassemble it. This is what it looks like. Same warranty applies here. We actually transferred a lot of the warranty system to this better as well. Anyway, the balance ring that's going around snaps into these holes. That's what holds it in place. It's got pressure tabs. Now, the only thing you have to do is make sure the tabs line up. There's no certain position to put it or any position that is required for you to do. Just pop it in place and make sure the tabs line up. That's the only thing. Otherwise, it won't lock. Okay, so we're going to pull the hub off right now. Can I borrow you guys? That's held on the top of this axle. The same size nut as we used before. The same locking splines, which are made of nylon, that sit here, that help hold the nut in place. All that stuff is the same. Okay? What you got there? Oh, that's that gentleman that brought it. Yeah. Okay.
Got the other end.
No, I don't have any of that stuff. That's what I was saying. Yeah.
The old school one.
Now what they're going to do. You have a larger one?
Check the truck.
Yeah.
Check the truck.
Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to loosen the nut, but there's a helper that is on the shaft, and that helper is the flat spot. I don't know, did I pass it around or did I? No?
Yes?
Yeah. No, okay.
It's right over there. Cool.
Oh. Thank you. Thanks. It's got a flat spot on it. That flat spot is for a crescent or a wrench that slides onto it. And then you lock the tub against the weldment arm, and it will hold it in place as you spin this nut off. Okay? The bottom is always where the tab goes. And there's a reason that they did that. But the worst part about it is if you put it in like this, You'll get to the end when it comes time for the hat, and it will not thread. There's no thread there. There's a hole, but there's no thread. So always remember, when we take it apart, we can talk about it again. This goes to the bottom. When you're working on the module and it's upside down, remember this goes to the top because you're working upside down. Now I took apart one that somebody was messing with at the factory and they put it in wrong. And I found it because the rest of the parts were not put together. But I didn't understand why, and then I figured it out. So anyway, I'll pass this.
Anybody got a
bigger press on it? We like a 12.
You need about a 12-inch press.
It is a handing pump, which is made by the same company that makes them for our front loaders, our little front loaders. With that, what the engineers did do is they wanted different specs from us. So this runs off and on in working differently with the turning of the motor and the spinning. So we went to a separate system because we can actually control when water is leaving and the speed at which it's leaving. So there's a reason for that. One of the reasons is that we heard a lot of sediment tears up the seal. And by the beach, the sand is what's really doing it. So what they decided was, if we stop turning and the sediment settles, we can start to drain first and get some of that out. While it's draining, it will continue to move and sense the load. Okay? What it's doing is preparing for spin. In the commercial world, distribution, they call it distribution. So anyway, with that, I'll pass it around, you can have a look. I heard from other service schools that other companies use this brand, but I don't think it's interchangeable. I know it's not interchangeable even with our front one.
You're saying it drains first and then?
Well, it
starts
doesn't.
spinning?
It does a combination. It will start to drain because the sediment lands at the bottom usually, and when it does, we drain a little bit of water out. Okay. The reason for that is to try to get as much sediment out of the tub before we start to spin and put it up into the close. So it's a combination. Okay, and I'll show you how it works when we get it back together. If we ever get it apart. Anyway. This pump can pump 8 pounds. No, yes, it can pound. It can pump 8 feet. My mistake. 8 feet of head pressure. So if you're in a basement, getting the water out is no problem. Okay, it pumps a little slower, but it can pump farther. Okay?
So it can only pump an 8-foot rise, is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's as much as it'll do. Do you have some that are deeper?
No, it shouldn't be pumping around.
Well, the Midwest has a lot of basins, so a lot of people have their laundry equipment there. And that's
Trey, the one we have on the current model pumps about 15 gallons a minute, and this one comes down to around 10 gallons a minute. So one of the issues we have is people that come out of a front loader or they come out of a high efficiency unit and they have pets and their drain is partially blocked, we'll get a lot of backups. So that's one of the reasons that this was done.
It's back. Thank you. So anyway, we've got that pump electric, 120 volt, and we control pulsing and pumping. And you'll hear it when we put it back together. The other thing this machine has on the right side is an off balance switch. That is an extreme condition. When we pull this module out, I can show you. That means that the tub actually has to bump the cabinet in order to trip the switch. Now, if our
I'm sorry,
counter...
I'm having a hard time hearing you because there's chatter in the background over here behind me.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so what I was saying was that the balance switch has to hit the cabinet in order to trip. Normally, our system will handle most off-balance loads, but sometimes you get a big comforter, big bedspread, somebody's overloaded, and it's clustered together, and now the machine will start bouncing back and forth. So what it does, when it bounces and trips the switch, is that it starts the distribution process over again. Okay? We still have water in there.
12-inch?
So what we're doing is we're sensing the load as we go around and taking readings on resistance and buoyancy of articles in the tub. Okay. That's on the right side. Okay, so what we're going to do,
You ain't got it.
Yeah, it's not gonna come off.
okay, so what we'll do then is you got to take this harness off down here. I think you already did, actually. Okay, good. So the only other thing, what we're going to do is we're going to pull the tub, I mean the module, and you've got springs on the bottom of this. The springs in the front are different colors to the ones in the back, meaning that there's a stripe of paint along it. The 432 uses all blue springs. This machine uses 4 blue and 2 green at the front on each side of the motor. That's to help with the removal of the weight we had with the transmission and the fluids and the brake system. So those springs are greater tension, and the other ones are lesser tension. So my trick is this. If you don't have the tool, what you're going to do is pull one spring off. Yeah, I got it. It's because we're on the ground here. Normally the leveling legs make it level. This was hitting the carpet because this goes through the base plate. This is our tension spring. There's the green mark on it. Okay? I'll pass it around, but I want to show you how to use this to remove the springs if you don't know. This is a trick I did when I used to do service. So I use this end, and I grab the spring side. And all I do is, and if you can all see this, you want to come up. Let me go to this side. It'll be better for him. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull on the spring and release it using this spring. Okay? So I slide it in, grab it, and you always want to pull the direction the spring is going. So don't stand on that side and pull that way, it'd be more difficult. Slide it in. And release it. And as you go around, this is much easier than the tool, only because the tool actually has a wide handle. And you start bumping between the outer tub and the side cap, and it makes it difficult. You'll scratch and cut your hands up too. You guys want to do that? Okay, so they're going to pull the springs off. We're going to pull the module out. There are 4 in back, 2 in front. When I say back, I mean from the side backward. Okay, so when you pull this out, I always disconnect the hose that goes to the air trap. I don't pull the air trap out of the tub, just because there's no real need to. It's all right if it falls down, don't worry about it. This tub is exactly the same as the 432. The hub that holds the inner tub and the inner tub are the same as the 432. You got everything up? Yeah, what you do is you hose. Yeah, you should be fine.
Yes. Okay. Even the switch here?
Yeah, that's just 2 wires. And you're going to lift and come this way. There you go. Okay, so
Still got a wire connected.
what do you got?
That's the motor wire. Yeah.
Okay, so you got a 5/16 ground right there and the plug. This module only has extra holes punched in it because it's also made for the 432. So you'll see extra holes when you're using it, maybe for a 432. They're porcelainized. You don't have to mess with them, meaning there's no special adapters, no special anything. The same bolt pattern, all line up with the motor carriage and the spring sides and all the welded arms. It's all the same. Okay, so here we have the module. This is the nut. I know everybody can't see. I can't really pick it up. But you want to take a look. This is the cinching nut, which is 1.5 inches or 38 millimeter. I use a socket and a drill, cordless, and I just rip them off. As quick as that. The thing is, we were trying to demonstrate the tools, but the issue is I don't have a spanner wrench. I don't think anybody here does either, right? Yeah. Unfortunately. Anyway, what I'm going to do is flip this over and show you the bottom half of it. The hub that sits right there has got a cork backer. That cork backer is so this metal does not ride on the aluminum hub metal. Otherwise, we'll start a wearing process. There are 4 bolts that hold that tub in place, and then there are 4 other bolts that hold the hat in place, with addition of the one on the top of the shaft. Okay. Any questions here? No? I know y'all can't see it. Okay, so we flip it over. Can't really see it. Probably. It's a little difficult with those, though.
That's all I can come up with.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got the weldment. The weldment is part of the suspension system. We talked about the base plate a little bit, and we talked about how the suspension works in a circle. But the item that really accomplishes that is this friction ring. This is made of Lexan plastic, which is incredibly tough, but can be brittle. So if you ever pull a machine out of the box, brand new, and the tub starts to lean to one side, this item may have been cracked in shipping, meaning they dropped the machine. If they drop it, the pressure of that module lands on it against the base plate and will crack it. When this cracks on one side, it starts to spread. When it spreads, you're now going to have a leaner. Okay, the whole tub will lean. You may get it in the house where you're installing it, start it up and run it. When it gets to spin, this thing's really going to open up and you'll know the direction it's going. Usually the direction it goes is where the split is. Okay? I'll pass this around, but I also want to speak to how this stuff works. Okay? The base plate is Teflon coated. The weldment is Teflon coated. The reason for the Teflon is an extremely hard material, and it works well with this Lexan plastic, that it allows us movement in a circular motion so we can achieve high spin. Okay? So these two work together with the balance ring that we talked about earlier, and they work in unison together. Okay, I'll pass this around. Any questions about that? No.
I have a question.
Oh,
How
okay.
long has this been under
Machinery?
research?
Well, that's all the way back to 2000. We use that in commercial, and that is actually in the 432 as well. But I wanted to explain how it operates that way. It makes sense. You know? The other thing is, all this stuff, once again, comes from the commercial side. So this machine, from the top down, with the exception of the porcelain top, is the same that sits in commercial. So the 432 is the same as the ones in the coin laundries.
So that suspension technology there is the same as the previous base?
Yes, the bases, yes, correct. We kept
Not
the
springs, but...
No, yeah, correct. We kept the base plate, we kept the weldment. These are some of the things that didn't change. Okay? Okay, so going forward here, I'll talk a little bit about the motor. and a little bit about how the belt works, because it's different from our old system. Our old system had a clutching effect. That clutching effect, when you start the machine and spin and it takes off, it slowly slips the belt around the pulley. As it gains momentum, because the pump is pumping, we start to get traction. We get traction with the idler, right, that bounces against it. This system uses a tight belt, no clutching, because all of the feedback has to be through the motor and the tub, and we want that band as tight as it's supposed to be. Now, there are no adjustments for you. If you change the belt, there are no adjustments to anything. All you do is ride it on, and the old one, you probably took off. So the thing is, though, I got the question, what about if you have a belt you have to replace? How do you know what is the right tension? Okay, I'm going to tell you what the engineers use. It's called Carbon Drive, and it's an app that goes on your phone. It's free, and it picks up frequency. Okay. Once again, this is the same type of technology in the large equipment. This is how we check belt tension. Some of them are 7 and 8 belt. So with that, the way that this works is that you have to put the microphone of your phone, oops, excuse me, right near the belt. What we're going to do is we're going to strum the belt like you would a guitar. What we're looking for is consistent frequency. So if you strum it hard, it may pull a greater frequency. If you strum it soft, it may drop. So we like you to look at an average. Do it 3 or 4 times so you can see what it's really at, and then that'll give you a good read that way. So all you do is you grab your finger, place the microphone across the band, and you strum it. Okay? So it shows 180. Okay? I'm going to do it again. That's 179. Okay, very close to 180. One more time. That didn't pick up. This is 182. So we're right in the market, right around 180. Now, in our spec data for these machines, which will be out after the new year, after the 8th, there are specs in the mag that tell us what the setting is supposed to be. The setting will be in hertz, so you know what you're supposed to be achieving with this app. And that'll be on, that would be maybe on even the front loader too. How many work on front loaders? A lot? No? Okay.
What's the name of that app again?
It's Carbon Drive.
Carbon Drive?
Carbon Drive. And it's free at Play Store. Okay, so to pull the belt off, what I usually do is just roll it around the small pulley and pop it off. That's when it's upside down. On the underside, you can also pull it off and put it on, as we put helper tabs on the main pulley. Those helper tabs actually hold the belt as you ride it along to get it on the pulley. The idea of that came from hearing about using tape, tie wraps, zip ties, anything you can to keep the belt in place. That's why they did that.
Nice.
They went to, yes, they went to a Kevlar coated 7-rib belt. Once again, pre-tension, and there's nothing to adjust. I'll pass it along.
So if the reading you get on that belt is out of spec, all you can do is replace the belt, there's nothing else
Correct.
you can do.
That's correct. So you're strumming it for that measurement. I don't know what the measurement is because it hasn't been released. Okay, so they won't give me information too. That happens. So what you're doing is you're looking for, hey, maybe the belt stretched, which is very possible with this.
Are there symptoms that go along with the stretch belt, like spin is fast or something?
Yes,
like that?
exactly. You're going to have something go on, maybe even error codes. Now the error codes on the digital will be E1 through whatever they decide. On this machine, it will flash lights that are on the front panel in a certain pattern and a certain rate. So when that happens, you're going to have a legend that tells you what is it, where is it, and what do we do for it. The reason for that is we're trying to help with diagnostics because we understand it's a little different, so until people become comfortable with it, we want to get this information out. In addition to this, there is also a nut holding the pulley on. It's on the opposing end of that shaft, and it's mounted the same way, same thread pattern, lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. It has the nylon lock that holds the nut in place, and that's what cinches it on the bottom half. Now, that cinching and torquing doesn't have to be too much. In fact, I would just snug it. The reason being is this spins as a complete part. Okay? So you're going to not really get much loosening there. And we've run these for 3 years in the field. And as they were designing it, they had them in their homes, the engineers. And they would go through them and tweak little things, write down notes what they need to do with the ones in the shop. And that's how they got everything right, all the performance, all the programming, all the sensing, because they were using them in their homes, which is kind of a neat idea. Okay, so the nut holds this this pulley in place. That pulley is aluminum, and it came from our dryer line, our large dryer line. Same ideas there. The tension of the belt, as we spoke, is preset. If you reassemble the motor and you actually throw a washer in between the motor plate and the weldment, by mistake, maybe you don't remember, maybe accidents happen, that motor will sit funny. And when it does, you're going to have the belt sit funny. The belt actually has to ride the center of this pulley. They want it at the center for the best read. Okay. You guys want to pull this off? Oh, no. Well, you can pull the motor off.
Still can't get that nut off?
No, I didn't try. We have the large.
I don't think those will fit the
Yeah,
tub in the shaft.
Yeah. An impact is great. That's what I use.
Did you say it was 38 millimeter?
38 millimeter or 1.5 inches.
I think I might have.
You have one?
I think I might. That sounds like.
Okay.
For the nut here?
Yeah, and on the inner tub too. Let's wait for him because this is going to be tricky to do with these. They're a good thought, but I think yesterday when they reassembled this, they cinched the nuts down. So, which means 3-phase, and it's mightier than ever. Let me tell you, we use this type of technology in our extractor line. Different shape, much smaller, and it really ramps up speed. We pull 400 G-force out of those large machines. And then go as high as 650.
What about noise level?
Noise is almost non-existent. This machine, overall, when it's running, only hits 43 dBs. And the motor, you won't hear at all. What you will hear is the sloshing of the water, and what you will hear is the pump when it comes on. The pump is actually the loudest part out of this machine. The other thing with this machine is we went from 16.9 amps on the 432 to 7 amps on this machine. So there is a lot of savings in electricity. But more than that, it's an easier install. And I say that because a lot of times that outlet is shared. Shared with the dryer, if it's gas, shared on a line somewhere else. What causes problems is when we over-amp. So when we try to pull too much current, the amps go high. Okay, that's what damages, that's what creates heat. So with this machine, sitting at a much lower amp draw, using inverter technology, which doesn't take off from stop to full speed, it will actually control those amps. So it keeps them low. The other thing is, I've heard that the size of the breaker you use is a 10 amp breaker. Now, I haven't seen a lot of those out, but the other thing is with that, I don't know if the homes you deal with, because I heard from some guys, we deal with a lot of older homes, that the wiring may not be right, the breaker may not be right. That's not for you to decide, that's for the owner. But the good thing is it'll run. It'll run. Okay, so, sorry. Okay, so here's the motor. You see it's pretty small. It's the same motor bracket as the 432. But I want to tell you, this motor bracket is extremely sharp. Extremely. I mean, it'll slice you. I think they have Gillette make this part. So with that, once again, we have holes on this end that are preset in place. The motor mounts there. That's the end of the motor mount. And then when it goes against the tub and the weldment, these are preset. So the tension, once you tighten them direct, is preset. You can't change anything with this system. So it takes thinking out of it, which is good. I'll leave this up here, but I'm not going to pass it around. Any questions about that? Okay, so this is three-phase, as I mentioned before, driven by our inverter. Oh, let's jump to this real quick. Let's pull this out. This is the off-balance switch, similar to the dryer door switch. This is the item that hits the cabinet. We talked about earlier. Okay. We're going to see who's got that in. The axle in place with the crescent, and they're just spinning the nut. Was it real tight? No, okay. So they did listen. The idea of that, of just snugging it, is all that's needed. That'll make easier disassembly.
That's a 38 millimeter.
If you were to get rust, water, or okay, so what they did, is they pulled the nut out. You can't get that fully out.
You don't want to pass that around, it's real sharp, you don't want anybody getting cut.
Yeah, be careful.
That's what I was there for.
No,
Ed, you don't want to.
You don't.
You don't want to.
Yeah, no, it's sharp, my friend. It'll cut you. That's in the report. Okay, so this is what the nut looks like. It's got a round side and it's got a flat side. The round side goes against what you're cinching. Against what we used to think, right? The flat side would cinch. Why, I don't know. I didn't ask, but that's the way it goes.
So what happens if you reverse it?
Nothing will happen if you reverse it. But I think it has to do with removing it if it's stuck. I think that's it. Yeah. Okay, so they loosen this nut. We've got the pulley still in place, and we have the nylock in place, which is the splines. Okay? Yeah, you got this all disconnected? You got 5/16 here. You got ½ inch here.
And you take the inner out, right?
Yeah, we're going to pull it up. I mean, well, this is what we need to do. So you cannot get the pulley off through the welding. Okay, it looks like it'll go, it'll almost go, but it won't. So what you have to do if you need to pull the pulley off is unmount the welding. Pull the ½ inch bolts out all around the side and a 2 5/16 on the counterbalance weight. Then as you pull it up off the shaft, the pulley drops to the bottom and it's easier to pull out.
Still, they take the inner nut off? You got it? Right, you take the inside nut off. The inside nut, you need to take that off?
Yeah, we will. That'll actually go out the top shaft. Okay, so those two more.
One more,
Okay.
we gotta get those.
Oh, okay. So what I usually do is I pull up on the pulley first, just to loosen, and then I pull the rest of it up.
Later on in the years, when those get stuck, you can't just pull on it. Is there
No,
some kind
no.
of a,
You're speaking to the bottom half?
talking about that pulley?
Oh, that pulley.
Like with a flat screwdriver or something, pry it up.
Yeah, you can probably do that. I haven't seen any.
So you
Yeah.
don't know what they're doing with the older ones?
No, they've been running 3 years, and I'm sure they have.
3 years not old though.
No, it's not, it's not. Yeah, that's right. Okay, so what we usually do is rattle this up, just like that. There's the spline. I'll pass it around. There's the nut. Now, how that all works, you guys, did I give you guys the shaft? I did, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's out there somewhere. I wanted to put this together so you can see how it works. The splines go upward towards the end of the shaft, and then the nut goes over it, and they lock the nut in place. It's like a nylock nut. Like you buy nylocs when you install whatnot. Yes, the factory recommends every time you remove this, you replace it. I'll pass it around.
You can take out one of those pulleys.
Yeah, just come over here. There you go. Okay. So we just pulled the weldment off. Very easy. And now the pulley will come out. Okay?
Or a deadly tool.
Yeah. Let's put it down. Okay, so here's our aluminum pulley. You'll notice the helper tabs for the belt. Okay? That helps keep it on the pulley as you're putting the belt on. Yeah. Okay, so I'll pass this around. I'm going to put this part together so you can see what it does. Okay? So what you do is you slide this on. It's much easier when it's mounted, of course. And it hits the groove that sits right here. Okay? And then this nut screws on it. These are kind of rough to start sometimes. And as the nut gets tightened, it grabs the plastic nylon as well. Okay? Now, this end I mentioned is not threaded. So we want to, I don't know if you were here. You heard that, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right. So this end and this end identical. Okay, I'll pass it around like that. Those are made in our factory, those axles. They're spun on our lathes. Right.
Is that bearing replacement?
Yes, this is replaceable. This pops out.
Bearing does
Yes. Okay, so the bearing is the same in the same spot. On the weldment, there's the lower bearing. On the tub, there's the upper bearing, just like before. These are replaceable, but sometimes difficult to get out.
Just hammer it out.
Now, the guy at the last school said he had a puller that he used that fit the backside, and as he tightened it on this end, it pulled the bearing out. It had an extension of a sheave of sorts. I don't know if he made it or he bought it, but that's what he uses. I don't want to pass this around. Any questions here? All right, so disconnected. No, don't. The counterbalance weight is on the tub, and it's a little different once again because we have different weights here. Wish I had a way to show it to you. If you want to come up and take a look, you can. It's deeper, so it holds more of the weight material, which is concrete. The tub to pump hose has changed a little because of the formation of where the pump lands and where the tub lands. So we kind of reversed a little bit. So that part will be only for this machine. It's not an interchangeable part. The nut and washer is an interchangeable part if you need to. It's the same. the bearings are the same. The bottom, or the upper bearing, is a little difficult to get out sometimes. It's held in place with pressure and a tab that keeps it from rotating. And just the inner race of the bearing rotates. And so to pop that out, you've got to do it from the upright. If we flip this over, you guys want to give that a shot? What you can do, it's easier if you do this. Just hold it as a crescent. We're going to take the upper nut off and remove the hub that is holding the hat and the inner tub. Ready? There you go. Pretty easy.
Same thing on this side.
Same exact thing. Here's the nut, and then you pull this up. There's the hub. This hub sits on the upper shaft, and then is locked in place with the splines and the nut. Now I notice, this is exactly what I'm talking about. As I pass these around, look at this one, the nylon insert. Yeah, they must have done it whenever in the school, maybe even yesterday. Right, right. No, yeah, I'm going to talk about that. Okay, so you've got 4 bolts that hold the tub in place, and then the other 4 that mount to this hub are for the hat. So when you install it, you make yourself 4 corners, basically. Here, 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 here. And then the other 4 will be done when you put the hat on. Okay? This has a race that rides inside the seal. Important here. If you do not lubricate this a little bit, you're going to have a problem with burning the seal. Okay, so I've heard instances where they've replaced these, didn't put the lubricant on, it comes in a kit, and then a couple of days later when the machine is run several times, you usually smell of burning rubber, and then this will start to leak, this seal. The seal is mounted on the inside of the outer tub. Yeah. Okay, so let's see. How does everybody get to see that? Andy? Yeah, yeah. Just be careful yourself. Okay, so that's the seal between the shaft and the outer tub. The tough part was that we heard that when you install this in the field on a 432, because that part did not change, you have to put the glue on, and you usually have to wait for it to dry. So you unplug the machine, you tell the homeowner you got to wait so many hours. What ends up happening is, a lot of the time, they start to use the machine too soon. So when they do, that glue becomes non-effective, rubs off, and now you got to leave. Yeah, you probably have that, right? So what Speed Queen has done is they've made a decision that that seal comes pre-installed at the factory, so the glue is already dry when you get it.
So you don't have to do it anymore.
Well, the only part I don't understand is what and how they're going to let you use it, at what point. So what I mean is, do you replace it if you have to replace the seal? That would make sense, right? Ship a whole tub. So I don't know, though, if they're going to charge extra freight. I'm not sure how it works. If it's within warranty, then it'll be covered. But if it's beyond warranty, what are the charges going to be? We don't know that yet. So when they introduce
$150 UPS.